The doors to the Grand Council Hall opened with a sound like thunder. Ambassador Robert Hayes stepped through alone. The chamber beyond was larger than any building on Earth. The ceiling disappeared into darkness 3 kilometers above. Seats, carved from living stones, spiraled upward in perfect circles. Each tier held delegates from species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Robert walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the massive space. 263 species watched him approach the center platform. Some had faces humans might recognize. Others were so alien that looking at them too long made his head hurt. Eyes of every color tracked his movement. Some beings had no eyes at all, but still watched through senses he could not name. The center platform was called the Speaking Circle. A ring of blue light surrounded it. Robert stepped inside and the light grew brighter. He could feel the energy humming through his bones. Every word he spoke would be translated instantly into languages and thought patterns of every being present. High Arbiter Theon stood from the highest seat. His body was covered in scales that shifted colors like oil on water. 4 arms folded across his chest in a gesture that meant judgment. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber without need for amplification. Human representative. You stand accused of crimes against the Galactic Order. Your species has violated Treaty 7845. You have constructed military installations throughout your star system. You have developed weapons that exceed your authorized technological level. You have refused 3 separate inspection requests. How do you answer these charges? Robert stood perfectly still. His gray suit was simple, no decorations, no weapons. His hands hung loose at his sides. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. Earth acknowledges building defenses in our system. We do not acknowledge that this requires anyone's permission. The chamber erupted. Delegates jumped to their feet. Sounds that translation devices could not process filled the air. Anger, shock, disbelief. Species that had submitted to council authority for millennia could not comprehend what they just heard. Counselor Vrix leaned forward. Her body was made of something like liquid metal. You do not acknowledge? The Galactic Council has maintained order for 5,000 years. Every species must submit to inspection. This is not optional. For you, perhaps, Robert replied. Not for Earth. Theon's scales turned dark red. You are a level 2 species. You were granted permission to explore your local system only. Building weapons platforms. Deploying automated defense networks. These actions violate every agreement you signed, Robert smiled then. It was not a friendly expression. We signed those agreements under duress. When your ships appeared in our sky, you did not offer partnership. You offered submission. You told us to accept limits on our development or face consequences. That is not an agreement. That is a threat. It is how the galaxy functions, Theon said coldly. Order must be maintained. Young species must be guided. Protected from their own violent tendencies. Protected? Robert's voice grew harder. Or controlled. Tell me, High Arbiter, how many species has the Council guided? How many have graduated from level 2 to full membership? Silence fell over the chamber. The question hung in the air like smoke. I will tell you, Robert continued. In 5,000 years, 3 species have achieved full Council membership. 3 out of hundreds who have applied. The system is not designed to elevate species. It is designed to keep them subordinate. Counselor Mela spoke next. His voice came through translation as whispers layered over whispers. This debate is meaningless. You have violated treaty terms. A compliance fleet has been dispatched to your system. They will arrive in 20 cycles. They will dismantle your illegal defenses? If you cooperate, no harm will come to your population. If you resist, you will be pacified by force. Robert reached into his jacket. Security systems screamed warnings throughout the chamber. Guards armed with weapons that could vaporize matter moved toward the platform. But Robert's hand emerged holding only a small data device. Your compliance fleet will not be arriving, he said quietly, Theon's 4 arms uncrossed. Explain yourself. Your fleet entered our system 18 hours ago. 43 warships under command of Admiral Krex, They proceeded through our outer defensive perimeter without detecting any resistance. They believed this meant Earth had chosen to surrender. Robert held up the data device. They were wrong. He activated the device. Holographic images appeared above the speaking circle. The Council watched as their fleet was destroyed. Not in open battle. In an ambush that used tactics they had never seen before. Asteroids that were actually weapons platforms. Small fighter craft that moved too fast for targeting systems. And something else. Something that made several delegates gasp. Human ships appeared from behind moons and planets. But these were not primitive vessels. They moved with precision and speed that matched the Council's own technology. Their weapons cut through shields that had protected Council fleets for centuries. Impossible, Vrix whispered. Those ships, that technology. You could not have developed that in the time since first contact. Robert's smile grew wider. You are correct. We could not have developed it in that time. Which should tell you something important. We had this technology before you arrived. We simply chose not to show it. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Theon's scales went pale. You deceived us. From the beginning, we protected ourselves, Robert corrected. When your ships appeared, we studied you, learned your weaknesses, prepared for the day you would inevitably try to enforce your control. That day has arrived, and your fleet has learned that Earth is not as helpless as you believed. Counselor Yara spoke for the first time. She was ancient even by Council standards. Her species had been founding members thousands of years ago. What is your intention, human? Do you seek to destroy the Council, to plunge the galaxy into chaos? We seek to exist, Robert replied, on our own terms. We do not want war with the Council, but we will not submit to your authority. Earth is offering you a choice. Recognize us as equals. Allow us to develop without interference. Or continue your attempts to control us and face the consequences. You threaten the Council? Theon's voice was dangerous now. I state facts, Robert said. Your compliance fleet is gone. 43 ships, thousands of crew, all destroyed or captured. And that was Earth defending itself with defensive systems. Imagine what happens if we attack. The chamber fell into shocked silence. The power dynamic had shifted in ways no one had imagined possible. A species that should have been weak and compliant had revealed itself to be dangerous and defiant. Robert turned to leave the speaking circle. You have 10 standard days to respond to our proposal. After that, Earth will assume the Council chooses continued conflict, and we will act accordingly. If you leave this chamber, Theon called out, there will be no peace. The full might of the Council will descend upon your world. Robert paused and looked back. Then come, but understand this. You are not facing primitives anymore. You are facing humans, and humans do not lose. He walked toward the exit. This time no one moved to stop him. The delegates watched in stunned disbelief as a single human defied 5,000 years of galactic order and walked away unchallenged. After Robert left, Theon received an urgent message. His expression grew darker as he read. The message was from Council Intelligence. It contained a horrifying discovery. Earth had not just hidden military technology. They had infiltrated Council systems, placed observation posts throughout Council space, mapped every major military installation and fleet position. Humanity had been preparing for this confrontation for over 30 years. Every diplomatic exchange, every trade mission, every cultural visit. All intelligence gathering operations disguised as peaceful contact. They have been playing us from the start, Theon said aloud. The weight of that realization settled over the Council like a burial shroud. 30-4 years before Robert Hayes stood in the Council chamber, a young pilot named Catherine Wells sat in the cockpit of an experimental spacecraft. Earth had just detected the first signals from an alien civilization. The world celebrated. Humanity was not alone. The celebration lasted exactly 6 days. That was when the Council ships arrived. 3 massive vessels appeared in orbit around Earth without warning. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb light. They were larger than any structure humans had ever built. Their weapons could have destroyed cities from orbit, a message played on every frequency. This world is now under protection of the Galactic Council. Cease all military activities. Prepare for representatives to establish contact protocols. The United Earth government assembled an emergency session. President James Carter looked at military advisors with growing dread. General Marcus Webb reported that Earth's weapons were useless against the alien vessels. Their shields could deflect nuclear weapons. Their armor could withstand anything humans could throw at them. We have no choice but to comply, Webb said heavily. Catherine Wells was in that meeting. She had been promoted to military advisor after her successful test flights. She was young, aggressive, unwilling to accept defeat. We have another choice, she said. We can pretend to comply while preparing for real defense. The room turned to look at her. President Carter said the obvious question. How do we hide military development from beings who can cross between stars? Catherine had thought about this for 6 days straight. We do not hide military development, we hide military capability. We show them exactly what they expect to see. A primitive species grateful for guidance. Meanwhile, we develop technologies they will not recognize as weapons until too late. The first council delegation landed 3 weeks later. Overseer Dax led the group. He was tall and thin with skin that seemed translucent. When he spoke, his words came through a translation device that turned his sounds into perfect English. Earth is classified as Level 2 civilization, Dax explained. This means you are permitted limited space travel within your own system. You may not develop weapons beyond basic defensive capabilities. You may not expand beyond your home star without council approval. These restrictions are for your protection. President Carter asked what would happen if Earth refused these terms. Dax's expression did not change, but his meaning was clear. Refusal is not an option. Species that refuse guidance are pacified for their own safety and the safety of the galaxy. Earth signed the agreements, the council departed, and Catherine Wells began the most important work of her life. She gathered scientists and engineers in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. Their mission was simple: develop weapons the Council would not expect or recognize. Earth could not match Council technology directly, but they could innovate in ways Council thinking would never predict. They have thousands of years of combat experience, Catherine explained to her team. But all that experience is against species like themselves. They have never fought humans. They do not understand how we think or how we fight. The team developed several breakthrough concepts. The first was kinetic weapons. While the Council focused on energy shields and plasma weapons, Earth built mass drivers that could accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. Simple physics that aliens had dismissed as primitive became devastating weapons. The second breakthrough was stealth technology. Council sensors were designed to detect energy signatures. Earth built ships with minimal power output. They could hide in asteroid fields, appear as space debris, strike without warning. The third innovation was artificial intelligence. The Council had banned advanced AI centuries ago after a war that nearly destroyed them. They assumed all species would have similar restrictions. Earth had no such restrictions. Human computers controlled weapons platforms with speed and precision no organic being could match. But the most important development was strategic. Catherine realized that Earth could not win a direct war with the Council. But they did not need to win. They only needed to make conquering Earth cost more than the Council was willing to pay. Over 30 years, Earth transformed. Weapons platforms were built into asteroids throughout the solar system. Automated defense networks covered every approach route. Ships were constructed in hidden facilities on Mars and in the asteroid belt. Every human who traveled off-world gathered intelligence on Council military capabilities. The Council never suspected. They saw what they expected to see: a cooperative species making slow progress within assigned limits. They did not see the weapons. They did not see the preparations. They did not see the trap being built around their complacency. Catherine became Admiral Wells and took command of Earth Defense Fleet. Her hair had gone gray. Her face had lined with age and stress. But her determination had only grown stronger. 3 months before the crisis, she received troubling intelligence. Counselor Vrix had grown suspicious of Earth's development. She was pushing for mandatory inspections of all Earth facilities. If inspectors came, they would discover the truth. The hidden fleets. The weapons platforms, everything. Admiral Wells met with President Carter in a secure bunker. "We are out of time," she said. "The Council will discover our preparations. We need to act first." "Act how?" Carter asked. "We always plan to remain defensive." "Plans change," Wells replied. "If they send inspectors, we refuse. When they send a compliance fleet to enforce inspection, we destroy it. Then we negotiate from a position of strength rather than weakness." Carter understood the risk. This could mean war with the entire galaxy. It could, Wells agreed. But submission definitely means slow stagnation under Council control. "I would rather risk war than accept certain subjugation." The decision was made. Earth would refuse inspection. When the Council responded with force, Earth would show its true capabilities. The moment humanity had prepared for over 3 decades was finally arriving. Admiral Wells stood in Earth Command Center and watched the Council compliance fleet enter the solar system. 43 ships moving in standard formation, confident, certain of easy victory. They had pacified hundreds of worlds this way. They expected no real resistance. "All defense platforms to battle stations," Wells ordered calmly. "Fighter wings launch on my mark. Capital ships prepare for engagement. This is not a drill. Today we show the galaxy that humans bow to no one." Across the solar system, thousands of hidden weapons activated. Ships emerged from concealment. Automated systems locked onto targets. The trap was set. The Council fleet continued forward, unaware they were already surrounded. Wells gave the order that changed everything. "Execute Operation Thunder. Show them what humans can do." The Kuiper Belt erupted with weapons fire. What the Council thought were asteroids revealed themselves as camouflaged platforms. Hundreds of mass drivers activated simultaneously. Metal projectiles accelerated to 15% of light speed. The Council fleet had seconds to react. It was not enough time. The first impact struck like the hammer of God. Kinetic energy equivalent to nuclear weapons tore through shields designed for energy attacks. 3 ships simply disintegrated. 5 more took critical damage and began venting atmosphere. The fleet commander, Admiral Krex, watched his tactical display with incomprehension. "Impossible," he said. "Those are supposed to be primitive. They should not have this capability." His communications officer reported more bad news. "Sir, detecting multiple small craft launching from inner system, hundreds of them. They are moving faster than our fighters." Krex ordered the fleet to reform into defensive posture. But human tactics did not follow patterns his computers recognized. The fighters did not attack in waves. They swarmed like insects, overwhelming point defenses through sheer numbers. Each craft was controlled by artificial intelligence that could react faster than any organic being. Then the human capital ships appeared. They did not come through normal space. They simply materialized at close range using a jumping technique the Council had deemed theoretically impossible. 20 vessels against 43 should have been no contest. But these ships moved with precision that spoke of decades of planning. Admiral Wells watched the battle from Earth Command Center. Displays showed the Council fleet in disarray. Her ships were targeting specific systems. Communications arrays, weapon emplacements, engine cores. They were not just destroying the fleet, they were dissecting it with surgical precision. "Target their flagship," Wells ordered. "I want Admiral Krex alive but his ship disabled." A coordinated strike from 3 human vessels overloaded the flagship's shields. Electromagnetic pulse weapons fried every system simultaneously. The massive ship went dark, tumbling through space. The Council fleet broke. Ships that had never retreated in their entire service history turned and ran. They broadcast desperate messages on all frequencies. Warnings about human capabilities, pleas for reinforcement. And most damaging to Council prestige, admissions of complete defeat. Wells let them go. 14 ships destroyed. 22 disabled, 7 escaped to tell the tale. Perfect. Begin recovery operations, she ordered. I want prisoners treated well, full medical care. No interrogation beyond name and rank. Let them see that humans fight with honor even against enemies. The captured council crews were shocked by their treatment. They expected torture or execution. Instead, they received medical attention for injuries. Clean quarters, decent food. Admiral Krex found himself in a comfortable room being visited by Admiral Wells herself. Why? He asked her. You defeated us. You could do anything you want. Wells sat down across from him, because we are not monsters. We fight when necessary, but we do not enjoy causing suffering. You came to our system to enforce unjust laws? We defended ourselves. Now the fighting is done and you are treated as any prisoner of war should be. Krex studied her carefully. The Council will send more fleets, bigger ones. You cannot defeat the full might of galactic civilization. Maybe not, Wells admitted. But we do not need to defeat everyone. We just need to make fighting us too expensive. Your fleet was supposed to be a simple police action. Instead it became a disaster. How many more fleets will the Council sacrifice before they decide negotiation is cheaper than conquest? She stood to leave. Think about that while you are here. You and your crews will be returned to the Council unharmed. Tell them what happened. Tell them Earth will defend itself. And tell them we prefer peace to war but will not submit either way. News of the battle spread through the galaxy at faster than light speed. The Council tried to suppress information, but too many species had detected the transmissions. The impossible had happened. A Level 2 civilization had destroyed a compliance fleet. On dozens of worlds that had submitted to Council authority, people gathered to discuss the implications. If Earth could resist, perhaps others could too. The Kelter mining colonies, the Vraxian resettlement worlds, the Helian quarantine zones. All species that had been pacified began to question whether that pacification was truly necessary. The Council convened an emergency session. High Arbiter Theon faced a chamber full of angry delegates. Some demanded immediate retaliation with overwhelming force. Others counseled caution and negotiation. A few quietly suggested that perhaps the humans had a point about Council overreach. Councillor Vrix was furious. We cannot allow this insult to stand. Mobilize the 4th battle group, 600 ships. Crush Earth completely. Make an example that will prevent any other species from getting ideas. But Councillor Melas disagreed. Have you studied the battle footage? The humans did not just have better weapons. They had better tactics, better coordination, better intelligence. They knew exactly how we would approach, how we would respond, how we would fight. This was not luck. This was preparation. Councillor Yara, the Ancient One, spoke quietly, but everyone listened. The humans have been deceiving us for decades. Every diplomatic mission, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, all intelligence gathering. They studied us while we dismissed them as primitives. Now they have shown their true capabilities and we do not know the full extent. Theon made a difficult decision. Send Ambassador Lyra to Earth. I want to understand what we are facing before we commit to full war. Ambassador Lyra was from a neutral species. The Iridani had no military and survived through diplomacy. She traveled to Earth expecting hostility. Instead, she was welcomed with full honors. President Carter met her personally. Ambassador Lyra, welcome to Earth. I hope we can speak openly about the current situation. Lyra was direct. The Council wants to know your intentions. Do you seek to overthrow galactic order? To spread chaos? We seek freedom, Carter replied. Nothing more. We do not want to rule anyone. We do not want to destroy the Council. We simply want the right to exist without artificial restrictions imposed by others. Admiral Wells joined the conversation. Your Council maintains order through threat of force. Species comply not because they agree with Council policies, but because they fear compliance fleets. That is not order. That is oppression. Without the Council, there would be chaos, Lyra argued. Wars between species. Uncontrolled weapons development. The galaxy would tear itself apart. Or species would learn to cooperate as equals, Wells countered. The Council assumes beings cannot govern themselves. That is the logic of tyrants throughout history. We know better. Humans have fought terrible wars, but we have also built peace. Not through domination, but through mutual respect. Lyra spent 3 days on Earth. She toured cities, met with citizens, studied human history and culture. What she found challenged everything the Council had taught her. Humans were not primitives. They were not unusually violent. They were simply unwilling to accept subjugation. She returned to the Council with a report that shook many delegates. The humans are not the threat we believed. They do not seek conquest, but they will not submit. And they have capabilities we severely underestimated. If we pursue war, it will be long and costly with uncertain outcome. 73 days after Earth's victory, the galaxy watched and waited. The Council had mobilized the 4th Battle Group, 600 ships, enough firepower to reduce planets to rubble. But those ships remained in Council space. No move had been made toward Earth. The reason was simple. The Council was divided. Hawks like Vrix demanded immediate attack. Doves like Lyra argued for negotiation. And the majority simply did not know what to do when faced with a species that refused to follow established patterns. Meanwhile, 32 worlds experiencing rebellions of their own. Not violent uprisings. Peaceful protests demanding the same rights Earth claimed. The right to self-determination. The right to develop without Council interference. The right to be treated as equals rather than subordinates. The Kelter workers on Mining World, Draxus Prime, refused to meet production quotas. When the Council sent enforcers, they found 10,000 workers standing together. No violence. No threats. Just solidarity. And human observers recording everything. Admiral Wells had deployed small reconnaissance ships to a dozen rebelling worlds. Not to fight. Just to watch. The message was clear. Earth was paying attention. If Council forces tried to pacify these worlds, humanity would know, and might intervene. High Arbiter Theon found himself in an impossible position. He could not attack Earth without massive casualties. He could not suppress multiple rebellions simultaneously. And he could not maintain Council authority if species kept defying him without consequence. He made a decision that would have been unthinkable months ago. He invited Earth to negotiations. Real negotiations between equals, not demands from superior to inferior. Robert Hayes returned to the Council chamber. But this time he was not alone. Admiral Wells accompanied him. President Carter appeared via hologram. And the seating arrangement had changed. The hierarchical tiers remained, but a separate platform had been constructed at the same level as the High Arbiter. A subtle acknowledgement that Earth negotiated from strength now. Humanity thanks the Council for this opportunity, Robert began. We come seeking not victory but resolution. Earth does not wish to destroy the Council. We wish to reform it. Theon's scales shifted through colors that indicated confusion. Reform it how? The Galactic Council was founded 5,000 years ago to prevent chaos, Robert continued. That was a noble goal. But the method used to achieve that goal has become oppressive. You maintain order through fear and force. You restrict species not for their safety but for your control. This must change. Vrix objected immediately. You expect us to give up authority we have held for millennia? To allow unrestricted development? It would be chaos. Admiral Wells spoke for the first time. Counselor Vrix, with respect, you mistake freedom for chaos. Humans have studied your history. We know about the Council's founding. You created this system after the Great Wars nearly destroyed galactic civilization. But you have gone too far in the opposite direction. You have created peace through suppression rather than cooperation. President Carter's hologram leaned forward. We propose a new framework. The Council remains, but its purpose changes. Instead of governing body that enforces compliance, it becomes a coordinating body that facilitates cooperation. Species join voluntarily. They agree to common defense and mutual support. But they retain sovereignty over internal affairs. Impossible, Vrick said flatly. Without enforcement capability, the Council has no power. Without enforcement capability, the Council has no tyranny, Robert replied. Power based on force is always temporary. Eventually someone stronger comes along. Power based on consent and mutual benefit lasts. Counselor Yara had been silent throughout the debate. Now she spoke and everyone listened. The human speaks truth we have forgotten. When the Council was founded, species joined because cooperation benefited everyone. Over time we became complacent. We started assuming our way was the only way. We started enforcing rather than persuading. The humans have reminded us of what we once were. She turned to Theon. High Arbiter, I support the human proposal. Not because they defeated our fleet, but because they are correct about our failings. We must evolve or become irrelevant. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued passionately against change. Others saw opportunity in Earth's vision. Slowly, gradually, consensus began to form. Not because everyone agreed, but because everyone recognized that the old system was breaking regardless of what they decided. Ambassador Lyra proposed a compromise. What if we implement reforms gradually? Test the new system with a few species first. If it works, expand it. If it fails, we reconsider. Robert considered this carefully. Earth can accept gradual implementation with two conditions. First, Earth and other Level 2 species must be granted full sovereignty immediately. Second, the Count. It establishes a clear timeline for full reform. No indefinite delays that allow you to maintain old systems forever. Theon recognized that this might be the best outcome possible. Full war with Earth would be devastating even if the Council won. Gradual reform would allow the Council to adapt while maintaining some stability. I will call for a vote, Theon announced. All those in favor of Earth's proposal with Ambassador Lyra's modifications. The vote was close. 139 in favor. 87 against. 37 abstentions. But it passed. The chamber erupted in noise. Some celebrating, others protesting. Many simply stunned that thousands of years of tradition had been overturned in a single vote. Robert stood and bowed slightly to the Council. Humanity thanks you for your wisdom. We look forward to building a better galaxy together. As he left the chamber, Admiral Wells walked beside him. Do you think it will work? She asked quietly. Honestly, I do not know, Robert admitted. Change is hard. Many Council species will resist. Some of the rebellious worlds will push too far too fast. There will be conflicts and setbacks. Then why are you smiling? Because for the first time in 5,000 years, the galaxy has a chance to be something better than it was. That is worth fighting for. 1 year after the vote, the galaxy looked very different. The Council still existed, but its nature had changed fundamentally. The name had officially changed to the Galactic Commonwealth. The emphasis shifted from enforcing compliance to facilitating cooperation. 30 species had been granted immediate sovereignty under the new framework. Earth led the group but was joined by the Kelter, the Vraxian colonies, the Helian systems, and 24 others who had lived under Council restrictions for generations. Not everything went smoothly. 3 species immediately started a territorial dispute that nearly escalated to war. The Commonwealth had to mediate carefully without forcing compliance. Eventually, a compromise was reached through negotiation rather than threat. It took longer than the old Council method, but the peace that resulted was genuine rather than imposed. Robert Hayes walked through the rebuilt Commonwealth chambers. The hierarchical seating was gone completely now, replaced by a circular arrangement where every species sat at the same level. Representatives from hundreds of worlds negotiated treaties, debated policies, and worked through problems together. Admiral Wells had retired from active military duty, but she remained as advisor to the Commonwealth Defense Initiative. This new organization coordinated mutual defense among member species. Not an army of conquest, but a coalition of protection, she found. Robert standing near a large window overlooking the station's main plaza. Below, beings from countless species mingled freely, trading, talking, learning from each other. Strange to see it actually working, Wells said. Robert nodded. I had my doubts. Still do sometimes. But look at them. Species that were enemies a year ago now working together. Not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. There are still problems, Wells cautioned. Vrix and her supporters keep trying to restore old council authority. Some of the newer sovereign species are testing boundaries. And there are regions of space where the Commonwealth has no influence at all. I never expected perfection, Robert replied. The old council promised perfect order and delivered oppression. The Commonwealth promises messy freedom and delivers genuine cooperation. I will take messy freedom every time. President Carter's term had ended. He chose not to seek re-election. He wanted to return to private life and let younger leaders guide humanity's role in the Commonwealth. But he gave one final address that was broadcast across human space and beyond. 1 year ago, Earth stood alone against the galaxy's greatest power. Today we stand as equals among equals. Not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to accept that strength-determined worth. We proved that courage and conviction can overcome tradition and tyranny. He paused, looking directly at the camera. But our work is not done. The Commonwealth is young, fragile. It requires constant effort from all of us to maintain. We must be patient with species learning freedom after generations of control. We must be firm with those who want to restore the old ways. And we must be humble enough to learn from others while teaching our own lessons. On Draxus Prime, the Kelter had transformed their mining colony into a thriving independent world. Breck, who had started the first protests, now served as their elected leader. He stood before his people and spoke of the future. Earth showed us that resistance was possible, but they also showed us something more important. That resistance must lead to something better than what came before. We are free now. That freedom brings responsibility. We must prove that we can govern ourselves better than the Council governed us. The Commonwealth faced its first major crisis 6 months after formation. An aggressive species called the Zal attacked a border world without provocation. The Zal were not members of the Commonwealth. They had always existed outside galactic politics, raiding and conquering as they pleased. The attack killed thousands. The victim world called for Commonwealth aid. This was the moment of truth. Would the new system actually defend its members? Or would it collapse when faced with real danger? Admiral Wells commanded the response fleet. 20 species contributed ships. Human vessels flew alongside Kelter fighters. Vraxian cruisers coordinated with former Council warships. The combined fleet outnumbered the Zal 3-1, but Wells did not want just victory. She wanted to send a message. The Commonwealth fleet surrounded the Zal forces but did not immediately attack. Wells broadcast a message on all frequencies. Zal commanders, you have attacked a Commonwealth member world. This act of aggression will not be tolerated. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Refuse and face destruction. The choice is yours. The Zal were known for their arrogance. They had never backed down from a fight. But they also recognized overwhelming force when they saw it. And more importantly, they recognized unity they had never seen before in galactic civilization. The Zal withdrew. It was a humiliating retreat for them, but it was a massive victory for the Commonwealth. For the first time, species that had been rivals worked together seamlessly to defend one of their own, High Arbiter Theon, who now carried the title Commonwealth Coordinator, watched the crisis resolution with satisfaction mixed with regret. Satisfaction that the new system worked. Regret that he had not seen its potential decades earlier. He met privately with Robert Hayes after the Zal withdrew. You were right, Theon admitted. I spent centuries believing that order required control, that peace required force. I was wrong. You were not wrong, Robert corrected gently. You were incomplete. Order does require some structure. Peace does require some strength. But control without consent becomes tyranny. Force without justice becomes oppression. You helped create something good. You just needed to remember why you created it. Theon's scales shifted to colors that indicated gratitude. What will Earth do now? You have reshaped the galaxy. Will you be content with your achievement? Robert laughed. Content? Never. Humans are never content. We always want to explore further, learn more, build better. But we will do it as part of the Commonwealth now, not apart from it. Ambassador Lyra had become one of the Commonwealth's chief negotiators. Her neutral status and diplomatic skill made her invaluable in mediating disputes. She worked tirelessly to bring new species into the Commonwealth peacefully. She approached Robert with a concern. We have 63 applications for membership pending, many from species that were not even aware of the Council before. Word is spreading that there is an alternative to conquest or isolation. But I worry we are growing too fast. The Commonwealth might collapse under its own weight. That is a risk, Robert acknowledged. But refusing membership to species seeking cooperation would betray our founding principles. We need to find ways to scale our systems. Make them work for hundreds of species instead of dozens. How? By learning from humanity's own history, Robert said. When Earth united under a single government, we did not create one massive bureaucracy. We created layers. Local governments handling local issues. Regional governments handling regional issues. Global government handling only truly global issues. The Commonwealth needs similar structure. The suggestion was implemented. The Commonwealth divided into regional councils that handled local disputes. The Central Council focused only on galaxy-wide concerns. It was messy. It was complicated. But it worked far better than trying to micromanage hundreds of worlds from a single location. 2 years after the initial vote, Robert Hayes prepared to leave the Commonwealth capital. His term as Earth's ambassador was ending. He had done what he came to do. Change the galaxy. Now it was time for others to guide that change forward. Admiral Wells threw him a farewell gathering. Representatives from dozens of species attended. They thanked him for his vision, his courage, his leadership. Robert accepted the praise graciously but deflected CRE. I was just one human speaking for humanity, he said. Admiral Wells built the weapons that kept us safe. President Carter made the political decisions. Millions of humans worked for decades to prepare for the moment when we could claim our freedom. I just happened to be the one standing in the council chamber. But I stood there because all of them lifted me up. He looked around the room at the assembled delegates. And I was only able to reshape the council because you were willing to change. Councilor Yara, who supported reform. Ambassador Lyra, who found compromises. Coordinator Theon, who put the galaxy's needs above his own power. The Commonwealth exists because enough beings were brave enough to try something new. As Robert's ship departed the Commonwealth capital, he looked back at the massive station. It glowed against the darkness of space. A beacon of cooperation in a galaxy that had known too much conflict. Admiral Wells sat beside him. Any regrets? Robert thought carefully. I regret the lives lost in the battle that made this possible. I regret that change required violence. But I do not regret fighting for humanity's freedom. Or for creating a system where others can claim their freedom too. What will you do now? Return to Earth. Teach at the Academy. Help train the next generation of diplomats and leaders. Make sure they understand that freedom is never permanent. Each generation must fight for it in their own way. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the Commonwealth continued its grand experiment. Hundreds of species learning to cooperate, to compromise, to work together despite vast differences. It was messy and complicated and imperfect. It was also the best hope the galaxy had ever known on Earth. Celebrations continued. Humanity had gone from threatened species to galactic power in less than 4 decades. But more importantly, humanity had proven that their values worked on a galactic scale. That freedom was not just a human concept, but a universal aspiration. In schools across Earth, children learned about the Commonwealth, about species working together, about the day Earth said no to tyranny and changed everything. Those children would grow up in a galaxy vastly different from the one their grandparents knew, a galaxy where beings were judged not by age or military power, but by their contributions and character, where disputes were settled through negotiation, not force, where species could reach their full potential without artificial limits imposed by others. It was not perfect. It never would be, but it was better than what came before. And that was what mattered most. The Commonwealth motto, suggested by Earth and adopted unanimously, was simple: unity through choice, strength through cooperation, peace through justice. Those words guided hundreds of worlds as they built something unprecedented in galactic history. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, but a true community of independent species choosing to work together for mutual benefit, and at the center of it all, a small blue planet that refused to submit, that dared to resist. That proved the impossible was merely the difficult waiting for someone brave enough to try. Earth had declared war not with weapons but with an idea, that all beings deserve freedom and dignity. That power should serve justice, not the other way around. That the future belonged to those courageous enough to shape it. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.